It is Friday, February 9. Mike Fiddle and I are going live, having a look at the weekend schedule, some stream targets, and probably touching on trade deadline because that's what we're talking about at the moment. This is Fantasy Basketball International. This is Balls Deep.
I'm the type to get shit done. You the type to observe. March Madness on my speakers, but today's November 23rd. Got something loud in the blunt, yeah. I don't say what I want, yeah. Probably somewhere sunny getting tan. Foreign women in the sun, yeah. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. Got my brothers with me. Got my brothers with me and my mama's healthy. That's all that I need.
Welcome to the Balls Deep podcast, part of the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. I am your host, Adam King, at AdamKing91 on Twitter. At FBI Basketball on Twitter is where you can find us. FBI.com, FBIBasketball.com is the website. As always, for a Friday afternoon, Friday evening, I'm joined by Mike Fiddle, fresh off. You did a show about, I want to say 3 hours ago, talking about the betting repercussions following the trade deadline. I caught some of that as I was waking up and getting ready for the day. We weren't here last week. You were off at a wedding, living your best life. So we actually missed last week's show. How was the trip? Good to be home, or you enjoy being on the road?
Both couldn't be equally more true. It's nice to get out every once in a while. I went to my college roommate's wedding. We were briefly chatting about it before hopping on the air. It was a great time. I was a groomsman for the wedding, spent a lot of time on the dance floor, might have a crush on the bride's sister, TBD if that becomes a thing. But also great to come home. You know, I missed my dog Bronny. I'm in beautiful San Diego, California right now, so it's hard to call any place but this paradise. Yeah, good on all accounts. And in terms of the show that I did, you said I did a show 3 hours ago. You were doing a show 3 minutes ago. I just quickly want to say before we get started, if anyone here is a gambler who also does stuff in the fantasy world like me, go bet the NBA Coach of the Year and split your bet up between Mark Daigneault and Chris Finch. Both are being offered at plus odds. I did a breakdown on my podcast about how you can weight those to get a 50% profit and return on investment, regardless of who wins. Take both of those names now. They're going to finish one or two in the West, and whichever one of those two is gonna get it, it's pretty much a guaranteed return on investment. It cashes on April 19th, so about 2 months away. So it's a short-term investment on a future with a 50% ROI.
Yeah, we were actually on the show that I was just on with the Insight Fantasy guys and Alex Reclean. We briefly mentioned the Coach of the Year, and I think it was Skiddy mentioned Mark Daigneault, and I thought, I think it's him or Chris Finch for me this year, because I thought in the East, I don't really see anyone. The teams are sort of doing what we thought they would do. Whereas in the West, the Thunder and the Timberwolves have exceeded all expectations. So I think they're probably the two clear favourites for me anyway, even without knowing what the betting lines are or anything like that.
Yep. Hard agree.
Right. So let's bring up the slides. So, yeah, as per usual, we'll just run through the weekend schedule, including Monday night, have a look at some streaming targets, and then at the end, we'll just touch on some winners from the fantasy, from a fantasy perspective in regards to the trade deadline. So the schedule for the next 4 days, we've got 6 games tonight, 11 tomorrow, so a heavy slate tomorrow because Sunday there's only 2 early games due to the Super Bowl. And then we come back with a reasonably heavy schedule on Monday with 10 games. So we've got a handful of teams both with 3 games in 4 days and then a handful of teams with 1 game. Those with 3 games, we've got Atlanta, Charlotte, Houston, New Orleans, Philly, Toronto, and Washington. And the teams that we're avoiding with 1 game, Detroit, the Lakers, Miami, Orlando, Phoenix, Portland, and Utah. And all right, going straight into the teams, the streaming. Now, obviously, with a few of these teams, we've had some trades that have gone down in the past 24 hours, so we might have some players that are potentially going to play. We're already seeing some of those trade, not victims, but the players that were involved in the trade getting cleared to play. So if I'm just reading through the injury report very quickly, Buddy Hield is playing tonight and starting, I believe, for Philly. So that's where we're at in Philly. That they've got so many injuries. We've got, I think Dennis Schroeder is available tomorrow for the Spurs. Campaign is playing tonight as well. I think the Knicks guys have been cleared. Bojan Bogdanovic, Alec Burks will be playing. So we are seeing some of them getting cleared, and I'm just waiting to see if Kelly Oubre gets not Kelly Oubre, Kelly Olynyk gets cleared to play tonight, because I've picked him up in a couple of leagues. So it will be a nice little bonus if he's available. What I might do, actually, I'm going to, while we're talking about the trade, let's just start with the deadline stuff.
Cool.
What are your thoughts? Because I know you covered the deadline in your show earlier today from a betting perspective. Putting your fantasy hat on, who are the winners for you? Like, I've got a few names here, obviously, players that I think were winners and should be picked up or streamed in or whatever. Any clear winners for you?
The ones that are most owned right now: Nembhard, clear winner; Mathurin, clear winner; Bagley, clear winner; Walker Kessler, very clear winner. TBD. I mean, these are all people who are going to get little bumps in playing time, like Cody Martin for today example. I did a write-up for the Action Network about his points prop, 15 or more points today at plus 250. He's going to get more opportunity. We'll see what happens when LaMelo comes back. Trey Mann is finally going to get a chance. They just waived Bouknight and
Ish Smith.
Yep. He can go to his 27th team of all time. Paul Reed with the Embiid injury has probably been scooped up. Simone Fontecchio, like it's going to be interesting how much, whether he's the winner or the right person on this list should be Ausar Thompson as the clear winner in Detroit, or a guy like Jaden Ivey. I'm really glad I grabbed Nembhard earlier this season, and he's been one of my guys. I think the people who have had Walker Kessler and been frustrated, take a deep breath, take a sigh of relief. He should probably be all right moving forward.
Yeah. Nembhard's an interesting one because he's sort of one of those guys that's been probably added and dropped a lot in most leagues, and he's starting, but he hasn't been great the last couple of games. But I've held him in a couple of spots just to see it, and so I think with Buddy Hield moving out,
I also might be thinking Neesmith. Is Neesmith the better one? Which one?
Neesmith is the better one.
Yeah, I have Neesmith. He's
so he is very clear, and I just didn't have him on this list because I figure he's not available anywhere,
right?
Or shouldn't be. But Nembhard is also, I think, a winner, but just doesn't have that upside. But if you need some assists and steals, he's worth a look. So
we go one more winner who's not on the list.
Yep,
and who might be floating around a waiver wire. Jalen Suggs with no trades in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
The heavy rumors of them trying to bring in a more established point guard, whether that was pre-agency. It looks like he's going to retain his starter role and his usage role the entire season. So people who grabbed that Suggs train and were holding a top 100 guy, hopefully he picks it back up a little bit. Hopefully he's a little bit rest assured. Some of this might be a comfort thing. Now that we've gotten through the deadline, Fultz is back, which is going to limit the Suggs upside, but Suggs should be just fine the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's right. And then obviously a few other names I've got on here. Marcus Sasser, maybe in Detroit. There's a few question marks around that Detroit rotation as a whole. We don't know what Quentin Grimes minutes are going to look like. Where is Isaiah Stewart going to slot in when he comes back? There's a common sense sort of, I guess, line of thinking with what we all think they should do and the minutes and how the minutes should play out. But there's also the Detroit line of thinking, which doesn't always match up with common sense. So it's a bit of a wait and see in Detroit and Charlotte. Yeah, I think Charlotte's similar. What are they going to do at that point guard spot? If and when LaMelo comes back, we know he starts. But until that time, is it Trey Mann? Cody Martin's been starting there. They have Nick Smith. They have Bryce McGowan's. As you said, they have waived a couple of those options, so it narrows it down a bit. But yeah, they're literally playing for nothing. So we'll see what they do. See what they do there.
Marlowe too, that he said he's waiting to get back to full health, and full health is the only thing that matters. So doubt we see LaMelo before the All-Star break, and hopefully after.
So looking at the teams, there weren't a lot. As I said, I think there's 7 teams that have 3 games, in the next 4 days. Starting in Atlanta, DeJounte Murray is questionable, I believe, still for tonight. I haven't seen an update come through.
They're going to let that one go down to the wire because they all think he got arrested last game because he was going to get traded. So now they're just doing their PR maintenance campaign and keeping us all guessing. I think he's going to be active.
I hope so. And they have an early game. I think they're one of the first games. So we should know probably, hopefully in the next sort of half hour to 45 minutes.
Betting line says DeJounte Murray's playing. It's moved 1.5 points since in the last hour and a half.
Okay, all right. So that's very good if you do have DeJounte Murray. Tyrese Maxey is still questionable, but just coming through that he's not on the court for his normal warm-up. And Nick Nurse is expecting campaign to start. So that would, I don't know what the betting is indicating here, but to me that might say that Maxey is out for tonight.
There's still plus. No, I would assume Maxey's probably good to go. I'm going to check on all that right now.
Okay. Anyway, so in Atlanta,
Maxey, right? It just popped out. Maxey will not go through pregame warmups.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's see. Doesn't necessarily mean he's not playing, but probably not a good sign. But
probably
anyway,
not a good sign. And he looked really sick and hurting last game.
In Atlanta, Sadiq Bey, DeAndre Hunter. So Hunter obviously had that really big game where he had 27 points or something, but he's done this in the past. But if you just need some points, he's worth a look. Sadiq Bey, much the same, points and threes. And then I mainly put Matthews in there if DeJounte doesn't play. So if DeJounte plays, which you said it's looking like he will, we're probably not considering Matthews outside of very deep leagues, but both Bey and Hunter can have some value as streamers. Anyone else? And we're assuming Okongwu is rostered everywhere. Let's get that out of the way.
No, I think Atlanta's. We know what we got. We got a pretty mellow deadline from them, so I'm good with them.
So on to Charlotte. We have touched on Charlotte a little bit. We did get word this morning that Mark Williams is going to be out for at least another 4 weeks with his back injury. I just rule him out for the season. It's not good. I mean, you're the back guy here on the show, having had your share of back injuries. Are we expecting him to miss the season here? Just given that there doesn't seem to be any progression or any improvement, like how worried are we about this injury?
I think back things are predictably unpredictable. So I think questionable tags and game time decision tags and maybe it just seems like what's the point, right? Like if LaMelo's going to be out right now, let's see what happens after the All-Star break right around the corner. That would be, if we're still seeing this at the post-All-Star break, let's have the same discussion. For now, let's just not expect anything new to change in the next week, but hopefully he gets back to being okay. We've seen, like, Michael Porter Jr. has become a consistent player who is troubled by back problems for a while.
Yeah.
There has been a few others. I mean, Ben Simmons is the reverse case, whether you think it's mental or spine. I'm always one who thinks the Ben Simmons problems have always been more spine related than mental. So it can go either way. Yeah.
So the names I've got here, obviously I've got Cody Martin, Nick Smith Jr. and Bryce McGowan's, but I mean, take your pick because they've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've only maybe got sort of 9 players that they can pick from. Nathan Mensah could play minutes at center. JT Thor, they waived Book Knight. Leaky Black has started a couple of games. it's really pick your poison here and just hope. But I think Cody Martin, for me, would be the clear priority if he's available in your league.
Cody Martin, and then I would think it's going to be Trey Mann once he's active.
Yeah. Once he's clear, but he's been ruled out for tonight.
Right.
Over to Houston, I've got Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, and Jeff Green. Thompson, obviously, with Van Fleet out for up until the All-Star break. Thompson he started the last game. He had a double-double, I believe, 13 points, 13 rebounds, and I want to say 6 or 7 assists. He's just a must-add for the next week, I think. Beyond that, probably not, assuming their rotation goes back to what it was before the Van Fleet injury. Jeff Green, look, I mean, that's a bit more of a desperation move, but Dylan Brooks, if he's available, go and grab him as well. But for me, it's Whitmore and Thompson are the two pretty clear priority pickups here.
Yep, Thompson's probably added in most leagues at this point, especially the active ones, especially with the Van Vliet injury, him getting 34 minutes last game. Cam Whitmore been steady around that 20-minute mark. So if he's going to do that, they could put up points. The only problem with playing into short rotation guys in Houston, Adam, is they're generally a top 10 defense and a bottom 10 offense. So when you stream into that, your returns aren't going to be what they are versus when you stream into Charlotte or you stream into Indiana, for example, or Sacramento.
Yeah, makes sense. So you're probably, you're looking at your streaming more for category leagues, I guess, if you're looking at Houston, because defensive stuff and the counting stats.
That stuff will still be there,
Yeah, Indiana, Atlanta, Charlotte, they're just points, a lot of points.
But it should be pointed out that, like, if Amen Thompson's available, he should be prioritized in the case that he does take on a larger role as the season progresses, right? Because he struggled to start the season, and now he's playing good basketball. And when you have a guy like Ime who prioritizes trusting his players and defense, we're seeing Jalen Green's minutes go the other way. And do we get Amen Thompson's to stay there? If so, he's a very versatile fantasy player. Both Thompson twins, big winners right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So New Orleans is the next team I want to look at. But just coming through, Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji have been cleared to play tonight. So both will presumably make their debut for Toronto. And we'll see what their role looks like. I don't know. I'm hoping that they roll with Kelly Olynyk at the 4 and move Trent back to the bench. What do you think that's where they go here, or will they bring Olynyk purely off the bench as a backup 5?
It's a great question. I think Olynyk probably, we're going to have to wait until we see who he pairs well with. Everyone's slamming Toronto for this trade, and then I threw out the question yesterday, Adam, maybe you could try and answer this. Who wins the trade between GM Danny Ainge and GM Masai Ujiri in this case, because they're notoriously known for only doing deals that they win. So someone name a winner and no one seems to be able to do it. Everyone's like, well, why and why and why? Kelly Olynyk, here's the why for Toronto. He fits well, and he's shown that in Utah, next to young players. He's really a really good development piece. So he's still going to get 18 plus minutes and hopefully up to 25 minutes and be very fantasy useful. So as long as he's active on an NBA team, because that's what he provides. And now being paired with guys like RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes and Quickly and all the other young guys that they've brought in recently, look for Olynyk to kind of like try and shepherd the young guys up to, he's like their Alex Caruso culture guy for the Bulls. He's a role player who can really help the young guys. And his contract, we'll have to talk about him next year because it's very flexible for the team.
Yeah, like I said, I'm hoping he does get a role here. We've seen what he can do when he plays meaningful minutes. He can be a pretty solid fantasy player, and I think
he could do it all.
He can, and he feels like a guy like, obviously with some of these players that have come over to new teams, that there's going to be a transition period of a few games where they need to get used to the offense and their teammates and that sort of thing. Olynyk feels like a guy that you could sort of just drop in anywhere, and his game can really fit alongside a number of players. And to me, just the fact he's in Canada, he's Canadian, he's home. I don't know whether he's family, whether he's now much closer to home, but mental health, just not that there's been ever any indication of anything like that with Kelly Olynyk, but just going home, I mean, what's that going to do for him? Maybe that is a positive as well. So, yeah, time will tell. We'll see how he goes tonight. In New Orleans, we've got Zion Williamson doubtful, Jonas Valanciunas questionable. I believe that's still where we're at. Nothing coming through for the Pelicans yet. So Larry Nance, for me, would be a pretty high priority pickup, especially if Valanciunas is out tonight. Trey Murphy and Dyson Daniels has been playing well lately as well. So I think all three of those are viable pickups tonight. Is there anyone else in New Orleans that you'd be targeting?
Larry Nance would be the guy for me. I think, did we get the word that Zion's active yet?
Well, he was doubtful. I think that was the last that I saw.
Oh, really? Because he's been playing on this heel contusion the last few games. So that's a turn for me. I'm going to check on it right now.
Yeah. He's still doubtful from what I can see, and Valanciunas questionable.
Then Nance would be an absolute priority.
Yeah. It's not a super favorable matchup because I think they play the Lakers tonight.
But it's a back-to-back.
It is. AD and LeBron are questionable. They're always questionable. But it's Nance's former team. So, yeah, I think I'd be adding Nance if he's available. Trey Murphy certainly will have more opportunity on the offensive end with Zion out. And Dyson Daniels, just for your defensive stuff, if you need some assists and steals, I think he's worth a look. He's been playing 21, 22 minutes over the past week. So a nice...
I've actually been rostering Dyson Daniels myself recently for the defensive stuff.
Yeah,
he was rumored to be potentially traded, or there was a potential DeJounte Murray to New Orleans trade that was brewing. And I could only think that must have included Dyson Daniels going back to pair next to Trae Young. And everyone who had Dyson Daniels on their fantasy team could have only dreamed of that pairing.
Yeah. Yeah. Daniel, I love Daniels. I mean, he's Australian, but yeah, he's
I think he's got high upside in this league. Yeah, I'd be targeting Larry Nance. He could do it all, especially if you're going to go against the Lakers. Probably the Zion questionable stuff is related to them having a back-to-back and only wanting to play him once. So let's assume Nance gets one start in this two set of games. It should still be close to 40 minutes, maybe even more than 40 minutes over the next two contests with decent usage. And he could do it all besides, threes pretty much.
Yeah, and if Valanciunas is out, that ceiling only goes up. So
I think
there's enough there to grab him, and then a bonus if Valanciunas is out. All right, over to Philly. As I've said, dealing with a few injuries here, but that normally means that there's some streaming value. So Paul Reed, if he was dropped, if anyone who picked him up has been a bit frustrated with what he's been doing, they might have dropped him. So I'd certainly go and pick him up. Mo Bamba is going to play those backup minutes if you need some blocks. Kelly Oubre, he's just going to fire up 1,000 shots. They're not necessarily going to go in, but if you're looking for someone with an upside of sort of 20-plus points, and Kenyon Martin, just because of their depth, really. He's someone in deeper leagues, but they do have Buddy Hield available tonight. They do have Campaign available tonight, so that helps them. But Batum is out, Melton's out, Embiid's out, Covington's out. So, yeah, there's some value here. Anyone else that I've missed, or what would be a priority order for you?
Well, if we think Maxi's going to be out, then who do we add onto this list?
Well, yeah, I guess it's probably Campaign. Especially if Nurse has already come out and said that he's going to start tonight.
Yeah, there you go. Let's add Campaign. Buddy Hield Do we think Hield's owned? Probably.
He probably is, but if he is available, I'd be adding him and holding him, I'd say, because Philly are going to need him moving forward. So
what about Kyle Lowry? I mean, I know that this is not for tonight, but very probably we have the indications that he's going to be released by Charlotte as a buyout guy and then signing with the Philadelphia 76ers, especially with them moving on from Patrick Beverley. It's another indication they just didn't really care. They're going to get Kyle Lowry. He's going to go into that role. Does Lowry interest you as a guy to get ahead of someone else trying to grab him from Philly? Do you think he's going to, be useful there at all?
I think maybe in very specific builds, if all you need is assists and some steals, then maybe. But I mean, he was playing decent minutes to start the season in Miami, so he had a role there, and he wasn't really must roster at all this season. So deeper leagues, I'd certainly consider him, but in standard leagues, I wouldn't be prioritizing him, I don't think.
I think we're going to have to talk about him plenty of times later weeks as we keep doing this throughout the end of the season. I think he's going to be one of those guys that floats right in that streamer zone. Yeah,
I think so too. Over to Toronto, we did just touch on Toronto a little bit, but I've got Gary Trent, Grady Dick, and Chris Boucher. Now with Agbaji and Olynyk both named to play tonight, I'd have probably both of them on my list.
Over Boucher, I would assume in both cases too.
Yeah, I think so. Boucher was just there because I didn't know whether Olynyk or Agbaji will play. They're relatively healthy now. Their starters are all good to go tonight. Bruce Brown is good to go. So they're probably going to run with, I would say, a 9 or 10 man rotation. Boucher may not even be in the rotation if they go with Kelly Olynyk at the backup center spot. Jordan Nwora could have a role, maybe. They've got sort of these fringy guys. Jonte Porter possibly goes out of the rotation as well. It really depends, I think, on whether they're going to play Olynyk as the backup 5 or are they going to play him alongside Pirtle or mix it up. And I wouldn't, if you picked up Olynyk like I have in a couple of leagues, I wouldn't just base your sort of expectations on what we see tonight because it's first game for a new team. So, like I said, I think you can drop him in and he'll play well, but he might only play 18 minutes tonight, where he might ramp up to sort of 25 or 26 at some point in the next week. So, anything else for Toronto?
No, I don't think Agbaji's in that. Grady Dick, if you need threes, and Grady Dick potentially a player that could start to get more run moving forward because they really need shooting out there. So,
okay. So I'm just reading here. It says probably won't. Okay. So Agbaji and Olynyk have been cleared, but likely won't play tonight. So there you go. I guess forget everything we just said, and maybe Chris Boucher does.
Yeah, and it's the front end of a back-to-back.
Yeah. So look. So maybe it is Boucher here. Maybe it is Jonte Porter. Maybe it's some of those guys. Trent and Grady Dick would probably be more priority though than those others. Over to Washington, the last team that has 3 games in the 4 nights. Bilal Coulibaly, we were sort of. He was one of those names that was being floated around as a stash heading into the deadline under the assumption that the Wizards would make some moves here and maybe get rid of Jordan Poole or Kyle Kuzma, which they didn't. They did get rid of Daniel Gafford, but is Coulibaly someone that we are rostering, someone that we think his role could increase? How do you view him moving forward now, given that the Wizards' rotation stayed pretty much the same?
Nope. I've been loud and clear on this the few times that we've talked about him on the pod over the last few weeks. We talked about it more in the beginning of the season when he had a few flashes and people was like, is she a stash? And I said, if you start holding Bilal Coulibaly, you're going to hurt your team more than help it. And I don't think this is the year for him. I don't think much changed at the deadline. I think he's going to be above a top 130 player, like worse than 130. So no reason. Skip it. Corey Kispert, right. I'd rather go Corey Kispert and just play in for a few threes and have the better version of Grady Dick.
Yeah, I don't have Koulibaly anywhere. I mean, I can see if you want to take a flyer on him. I'm not overly high on him, but yeah, look, I do think he'll be playing pretty heavy minutes at some point. But I'm just not sure he's consistent enough, and his offensive game is really raw at the moment. So some defensive stuff. Corey Kispert is coming off a pretty good game. I think he had like a 20-point game, I want to say.
He's a good player. He's their Max Strus.
Yep.
He's been on a good run, and he's reliable.
He has, yeah. So he's had, last 4 games, he's played at least 25 minutes in all 4, over 30 in 2 of those. He has 4 double-digit games, at least 23 points in 2 of those. Doesn't do a lot else. Can get a couple of assists and sometimes lucks into a steal. But efficiency, he's great from the free throw line. Hits a lot of threes, as we said. So I don't mind him. And then the question, I suppose, tonight, because Marvin Bagley is out. He was one of the winners with from the fantasy deadline, obviously the trade deadline. But he's out tonight. So is Rashawn Holmes. So is it Eugene Omoruyi? I mean, he's not even really a true center, I don't think, but I think he's probably going to play. And if you need a center, I'm pretty sure he's coming off a decent game as well. I think I saw when I was looking at numbers. Game before. So not the last game before, he played 23 minutes, had 16 and 10 with 3 steals. What do you think about him? Short term with no Rashawn Holmes and no Marvin Bagley.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally nobody else, right? Somebody's got to catch the rebounds. The old Chris Humphreys role in for the New Jersey Nets.
Yep. Between
him and Koulibaly, because the rotation is so short, you could view them as short-term streams for the 3 games in 4 days if you need that. Pre-All-Star break would be a good thing to do. But if you could target a player who maybe after the deadline you think is going to have more staying power, that's always my preference. But good targets considering the rotation. It's 3 games in 4 days, but probably you're getting added pieces back tomorrow.
Yeah. And I mean, Washington are playing Boston tonight in Boston, so it could be a game where their starters only play 24 minutes or something. I think we were talking on the show that I was on before this about overs and unders and bets and stuff, and we sort of came to the conclusion we think Kristaps might have a decent game tonight, given he'll be up against Omoruyi or Kyle Kuzma or whoever they decide to float out at center.
And it's a revenge game for him too.
Yeah, up against his former team. Tyrese Maxey has been ruled out for tonight. So that's, I guess we're going with Campaign as a streamer for tonight. So if you've got a spot and you've got time,
go bet under 245 total points if you have the time. That's what you should do.
Okay. Yeah, there's and Kelly Oubre for over, I don't know what, 30 shot attempts. He's going to shoot it a lot. All right. And I think that was it, because I think my last slide was the trade one, but we sort of jumped.
There's one other thing we got to talk about.
Yep.
OKC is not a 3-4, but they do have a back-to-back with that really light Sunday schedule because they play on Super Bowl Sunday. So they're a Saturday, Sunday team, which is worth discussing, and the Gordon Hayward implications. So I don't really know, is it a Lou Dort pickup for that Saturday, Sunday before they get Gordon Hayward ramped up to speed? Do we think he's going to come in and be active right away? Is he someone that people should be targeting if he's been dropped? Because it's been since December since he even was active and played. How do we feel about the OKC situation?
I think he plays minutes when he's back and he's playing. I think he's probably 26 to 28 minutes, but
he's ruled out through All-Star game.
He is, yeah. So he's not going to play this week. So we're not worrying about it yet. But I mean, if he was dropped, he's I think he'll have some value at some point. And I think the fact that the Thunder have already shown that they're not afraid to run without Josh Giddey, and they play Isaiah Joe, they play Cason Wallace as that fifth starter to close the game in a lot of situations. I could certainly see Gordon Hayward stepping into that role to close games. So while I don't think he starts, I think there is still a path to him playing close to starters minutes, assuming his body can handle it. That'll be the question with Gordon Hayward. I'm really happy for Gordon Hayward, given just the fact that he went to Boston when they were sort of on the up, and then he had that leg injury, which sort of derailed his career, and he then went to Charlotte, and he's just sort of been floundering on a team that has no real direction. So from a personal standpoint, just for him, I think it's really good that he's now on a team that is on the up and will probably be contending this year.
Yep. This is all good news for them. I'm very happy I just got in that bet. Sorry, I was a little distracted.
Yep. So DeJounte Murray's out. There we go. That's annoying.
Yep. Oh, DeJounte Murray out. And Maxey out.
And Maxey out, yep. So Patty Mills is also out in Atlanta. So if you're looking at some streaming in Atlanta, I guess maybe Garrison Matthews does come back up into discussions. Bogdan Bogdanovic will come into the starting lineup. DeAndre Hunter gets a bump. He's playing. Yes, DeAndre Hunter is playing tonight.
Sadiq Bey's still out?
Sadiq Bey. No, Sadiq Bey's playing.
Okay.
Wesley Matthews is also out. So it really leaves their guard depth at Trent Forrest, Garrison Matthews. Maybe Kobe Buffkin gets some minutes.
Yep.
So
Matthews for 3 points.
Matthews is out.
Garrison Matthews is out?
Oh, Garrison Matthews. Sorry, on Wes Matthews. Yeah, Garrison Matthews for 3s and points. I think it'll be a lot of Trae Young. Sadiq Bey will get more shots. Okongwu will need to do a bit more offensively. Jalen Johnson will get more shots. So just a little bit more to go around on a team that obviously likes to play at a fast pace and scores a lot of points against a Philly team that is well down on troops. So could be some, interesting stat lines coming out of that game tonight. All right, let me close that.
I'm angry that the OKC Thunder didn't get Xavier Tillman.
Yeah, Boston did really well.
Gets him for 2 seconds and scoops him up for the end of their rotation and for eventual playoff spot. Meanwhile, OKC has no big man depth. They have 117 first-round picks. They give away a first-round pick to Dallas Mavericks in exchange for a potential first-round swap in 2028 that doesn't even convey into seconds. They might have just given away a first-round pick for free if Dallas is better than OKC in 2028. Why not use that pick to go get Xavier Tillman?
Yeah.
Mad about it.
Yeah. Oh, look, we talked about it heading into the deadline that was the piece they needed. They needed a backup center, and they didn't get one. I don't know if
they literally facilitated a Gafford trade instead of going to get their own with someone who's going to be their competition. Go get Gafford. Just take Gafford yourself.
That's right. Yeah. Drummond was supposedly available in talks, and grab Drummond. Like there were options, and they
PJ Washington would have been a fantastic fit in OKC.
Yep. It's it was one of the frustrating things to come out of that deadline was the fact that the Thunder didn't make any moves, given their war chest of picks that they've got, which you can't use all of them. So you need to start utilizing them as currency. So anything else before I let you go?
I think the Knicks did really well.
Yep, they did.
And I think out of all the teams that did not really make a move, the Pelicans got the biggest benefit of it.
Yeah, and I think, you already touched on the Celtics getting Tillman, getting Springer as well from Philly for basically nothing was an odd move by Philly. But
I'll be betting the Celtics to win the title at the day the playoff starts, and I'm sure that they're still healthy. Right now, the odds are not worth it because of the baked-in injury risk. But get ready for another Celtics deep playoff run. It's coming.
Yeah. And even just thinking long term now, Jaden Springer is going to be playing behind arguably two of the best defensive point guards or guards in the NBA in Derek White and Drew Holiday. He's in a perfect situation for them to groom him to be their point guard of the future.
Yep.
And they still have Peyton Pritchard, he's a really nice, solid depth piece on any team. So, yeah, Celtics did
and
really
a perfect fit because Peyton Pritchard's more of an offensive punch.
Yeah. They did really well without really doing anything or giving up anything. So
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, like it for Boston. So
Brad Stevens, new GM of the league.
That's right. That will do it then for today's show. What have you got coming up over the next week? Your usual shows, I suspect.
Usual shows next week, and then once the Super Bowl's over, we'll start doing the check ball where we just talk random basketball topics every Sunday.
Yep.
We're just waiting for football to end for more people to focus basketball and to not be going up against people wanting to watch Super Bowl because we want to watch the Super Bowl too. So I hope everyone enjoys the big game if you are watching that. Otherwise, betting show on here on the Advantage Sports Betting Podcast next Wednesday. I just did one on the betting implications of the NBA trade deadline. And then we'll be doing betting and just general basketball talk every week for the rest of the season.
Yep, all great stuff. I've got my usual stuff as well. I'll be doing industry pickup recap with Mitch Casey on Sunday night. And then I've got my usual shows with Noah, with Matty G and the boys on Thursday night. And then we'll be back next Saturday, same sort of time. I would assume we'll nut that out during the week, but usually it's around this time before games tip off. That brings us to an end. Thanks for tuning in. We are on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Twitter, YouTube. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, like, all of that stuff. It all helps us build our little brand here that we've got going on. Until next time, catch up.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.